Hey, what's up, guys? It's 8th Deadly Sin here doing another champion select analysis for the EU LCS. This is week 1, day 2, Fnatic versus Vitality. It's a pretty fun game. I didn't get to see the entire game of this, so I'm really just doing a pure champion select analysis, purely based on team comps rather than the actual outcome of the game and how these teams were executed these picks. I think this is going to be a very interesting game to break down, especially seeing Vitality's blunders on day 1 and how they want to change that, as well as the surprising, crushing victory that Fnatic experienced in that game. So let's jump right into bans. We're going to have Vitality on the blue side banning Tahm Kench right away. I think this is a very good ban in the sense that Tahm Kench is probably one of the greatest flex picks available. I think he's very, very good in the top lane, essentially taking the role as two front laners with the Grey Health Shield, as well as just the pure mobility factor of him having teleport and his ulti, and his ulti actually channels faster than teleport, so he can get into these fights if he's in range with his ulti faster than the enemy can if the enemy is going to be teleporting in. I think it just offers a lot of, good damage in lane, in the sense that if it's going up against the melee matchup, getting those 3 hits and then the Devour not only takes a huge chunk of health out, it also is very easy to set up, and I think that's just a pure factor of being able to set up damage and engages with the Devour on enemies, as well as protect the carries with the Devour on the friendly side, and getting that huge mobility boost when you do so. The Tahm Kench is probably just super strong right now, a very safe ban coming out from Vitality, especially if you're not going to be picking it up first. Now, coming out of Fnatic, their ban is going to be Gangplank. Again, Gangplank is pretty much a necessary red side ban. It's probably the strongest top laner in the meta right now. Just does a huge amount of area of effect damage that happens to be AD. Can crit with the barrels, has amazing wave clear with the barrels. The global presence of his ults pretty much allows you to set up any dives and protect against any dives as well as just a massive amount of damage and a huge threat that Gangplank comes. Necessitates a first pick if it's left open, and Fnatic's not giving Vitality the chance. So moving on to the third ban, it's going to be Kindred. Kindred, probably one of the top tier junglers in my top 5 junglers, but I really don't like Kindred personally. If you watched any of my other videos, you kind of see why I don't think it's that effective. I think with any CC on the team, this Kindred can be eliminated super fast because it is so squishy and can be eliminated before that ult has been used. I really haven't seen a good Kindred ult being executed in combination with any other effects, but ultimately that ult still is a strong and really OP factor in the game, essentially allowing you to put a pause on any dives that happens, as well as setting up a lot of nuke damage and burst that can come in and execute an enemy team that's been made low by the Kindred ult and kept at that low state with the invulnerability that is there, as well as save teammates and the damage that Kindred can do. Kindred can do insane amount of damage, even though she is a very squishy champion, so I like it a lot. It's still a decent pick, still in the top tier of junglers, and necessitates a ban that Vitality feels it needs. Next ban is going to be Lulu coming out from Fnatic. Again, Lulu just one of those really top level meta picks. If you watched any of my videos so far, everyone's either banning or picking Lulu, and I think there's a really good reason for this. She's just so good in that early to mid game stage. She can buff up an ADC or anything, and allowing for so much more teamfight potential in mid lane. She's even more viable with Thunderlords because the Whimsy and the auto attacks pretty much guarantee a massive burst of damage, pretty much guaranteeing that Thunderlords proc to occur. And since Thunderlords wasn't nerfed, even though it is very, very strong, so she's still very, very effective in the mid lane. Never experiences that late game slump where she becomes an ult bot, essentially, because it never really gets to that 40 minutes anymore in any of these games. We've been seeing faster and faster games, meaning she's still strong up to that 30-minute period, where that's kind of where a lot of these games are heading unless something terrible really happens. The next ban coming out from Vitality, sorry, I almost lost my train of thought there, is going to be the Lissandra. Lissandra is probably one of the strongest top lane picks that you can have this game, honestly. This is probably the best ban that the Vitality can do at this point, in terms of not necessarily banning pocket picks, but just banning top tier champions that are just generally strong in this meta. Lissandra offers so much team fight potential with their AoE damage, her ability to lock up targets with their ult and just set up these zones of CC, as well as being able to control certain areas and just having that massive area of effect team fight. While she doesn't have the split push potential, she kind of makes up for that in the ability to kind of scale into the late game a bit with items such as Roa, but also just that massive team fight potential that she has, as well as the ability to pick people off and wave clear with her E is just insane. So a very good pick to ban on the blue side, because it leaves Fiora open for a first pick. It also leaves Ryze open for a first pick. So let's see what Fnatic bans here. Fnatic bans Thresh. Now, really, bruh? Like, that's all I gotta say. Like, really, bruh? If you've watched my analysis on, I believe it was the either LCK games, I think there's Thresh bans in both of them. If you've watched those videos, you've seen that Thresh is really, why ban Thresh? There's no reason to ban Thresh. Like, at best, you're banning a pocket pick of Kasing, but ultimately, what are you more afraid of? Kasing's, Thresh or Cabochard's Fiora, or are you more afraid of Nuke Duck on Rise? And I would think you would need to be more afraid of those two options. The Fiora and the Rise are way stronger picks, even if you think Rise isn't that effective, as we didn't really see a good Rise come out of EU on the first day. The best person to give us a good Rise performance in the mid lane would be Nuke Duck. So I don't really understand this Thresh ban at all. It really doesn't like protect anything or any weaknesses, and there eventually went for team comp, and it really doesn't, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. That's the only way I can describe it. There's really not a lot of justification for having a Thresh ban when there's such better bans out there to choose. Even a Misfortune ban would have been better, even though I probably would have said ban the Fiora or ban the Rise. Those would have been my two suggestions to do. Probably would have ended up banning the Fiora if it was me in that decision, just because I would doubt Nuke Duck's ability to have his mid-game to early game Rise mechanics on fleek, if you want to put it that way, being that good to be able to counter Rise with other assassins that Febivin could play. I think Febivin would be able to beat up that matchup. But let's get into the actual picks now and see how this came out. So Vitality insta-picks the Rise. Would you look at that? I mean, told you should ban it. It's still very strong. Nuke Deck probably is a very good Rise player just from his mechanical prowess and his ability to be a good mid laner. So they first pick it. It's self-explanatory, and it's a nice flex pick. So all those reasons I stated why Rise should have been banned, his massive amount of AoE magic damage, his ability to scale up into a late-game beast if it even gets to that point, and especially in mid lane where the lane is shorter and he takes teleport and can get in the lane faster and just get more and more gold to get those items to scale up even faster, he just becomes even more and more and more of a threat earlier on. And I repeat early twice just because of just saying how it is important and how much of a threat he can become and how much he can dominate lane. The only risk with Rise is that he's a very passive laner, very farm oriented in the early game. So if you take an assassin like champion, which Fnatic ends up going for, you can possibly counter and shut down the Rise, never allowing him to get to his late game potential. But Nuke Duck is one of those players where he's good enough that he can probably manage the early game slump of Rise, making it a very good first pick. Only other first pick that I would have suggested would be the Fiora, but I don't think Gamsu is the greatest Fiora player. We've only seen him play Olaf on that first game where everyone's equating him to Huni, but one game is not reflective of the whole, folks, and I think if you've watched this game, Gamsu did not have the same performance, and we'll kind of get into the flaws of that when we talk more about the Fnatic draft. But let's get into the Fnatic draft right now. In the second phase, they're going to be picking up the same bot lane that they ran on day one, going to be the Lucian and Poppy, and I see really no problem with this. Poppy is very strong in combination with Lucian, a very ham bot lane, if I had to describe it in words such as that. Very ham in the sense that Lucian is a very good lane bully. The amount of damage that he can dish out with his passive in combination of poke with the piercing light and the wave clear that he offers in damage with the culling in combination with the ham factor of Poppy, where Poppy can get the occasional poke in with her buckler and auto attack in, as well as just the ability to dodge any necessary engage coming in with the ability to stop those dashes, as well as the disengage factor of Poppy's ult and the inherent tankiness of Poppy in which she gets, as well as just the ability to stun and the utility to play off those walls and a lot of structure that is in the bot lane. Just makes her really good and honestly a pretty safe support, and we've seen Noxiac do wonders on this Poppy, as well as the roam potential that Poppy has. So for Noxiac, it's a very safe pick for him, and I think it's very good, especially when you're still easing him into the LCS. And for Reckless, I think Lucian allows him to go a little bit more ham instead of being a clean-up AD carry, but you still see those tendencies in him when you watch those games. So Lucian just allows him to get a little bit out of that classic Reckless that we saw in last year's Fnatic. So I think a very good pickup for drafting the bottom lane there. I wouldn't have suggested to pick away the Misfortune. I would have definitely said either Corki or Lucian, and considering the performance that we had on Lucian yesterday, especially with Reckless, he's very comfortable on Lucian. Lucian's a good pickup. Moving to the third picking phase, it's going to be picking up Misfortune and Morgana. So I really like how Vitality is mirroring the picks. This is generally what you should be doing, even if you're on the professional scene or you're an amateur ranked team. You should be trying to mirror your picks so much as to keep other keep mystery to what your team comp is going to be in, well as B, give you more counter pick potential in your next drafting phase. See, we've already had a flex pick with Rise and then just mirroring the picks of Fnatic, so very much allowing a lot of counter pick potential with the jungle and top lane picks, or the mid lane picks if they want to flex Rise top, which they definitely can. So when we look to this, I think Miss Fortune very good on my top three ADCs, and if you watched any of my other videos that I've released today, you can really know why, and I'll re-explain all of this because the nerf only really affects her Make It Rain E ability, meaning she has less wave clear in the sense that she can't clear waves as fast with the E because the damage is greatly reduced, and she can't get a lot of burst damage in lane and control a lot of zones of pressure with her E with the Thunderlord's proc. But that doesn't really matter because her love tap has pretty much the same exact ratio as it did before, so her love tap is still dealing massive amounts of damage. Her Q was untouched, meaning her Q still does massive amounts of damage on that second bounce, especially if you get a crit, and her ult still does massive amounts of damage with no cooldown reduction, mana increase cost, or anything nerfing that in that sense. So she is able to put out this giant zone of damage, pretty much making her a really good cleanup ADC and team fighting ADC in the sense that she can lay down massive amounts of damage with that ult, and if they want to get a turret and someone's under turret, trying to protect against the siege, lay down an MF ult on that turret, and you pretty much guaranteed control of that, allowing them to have a lot of siege potential and ability to snowball objectives, especially with the changes to turrets and how they have lower AD. Going on to the Morgana support pick, I think it's fairly decent. I really wouldn't have suggested much since the Thresh is banned for Kasing, and Tom Kench is already banned out. The only thing I would have suggested besides that is the Braum, but at this point there's really no reason to take the Braum because all you would be blocking is a buckler shot and a Lucian abilities right now. So I think Morgana's good in the sense that if Fnatic starts to draft more and more CC, Morgana can spell shield onto whoever she needs to kind of protect them and isolate them from that. And Morgana also offers a lot of control in the sense that the Q and the bind is very effective, as well as the team fight ult of being able to chain CC with the rest of this team. We already have a lot of CC and slows coming out from a Make It Rain to allow, even while it doesn't do a lot of damage, it may allow Kasing to get more roots landed of bindings landed because of the slow, allowing him to better aim that up. And then if we combine, and in the process of landing those bindings, they can really chain it with rune prisons, and then the ult from Morgana offers a lot of CC and utility in that sense with the spell shield, a very good support to pick up, especially seeing how you have Poppy there. The only thing you could really counter Poppy's, hamness with would be the equal hamness of a, Alistar, but that doesn't really synergize well with the kit of Misfortune, so I really like the Morgana pickup coming out from Vitality. Now into the next picking phase, we're going to be picking up the Zac for Spirit and the Olaf for Gamsu. Now, if you haven't noticed by now, this is the exact same draft in terms of champions that Fnatic had earlier on day one. Now this kind of scares me because either they have such confidence in their ability to play this or such hubris in the fact that they don't think anyone either reviewed any VODs or for their upcoming match. I'm pretty sure Vitality, with the experience and talent that they have on their team, as well as as long as their coaching staff has 2 brain cells to rub together to make a spark, it's to prepare a strategy and at least become acquainted with what Fnatic run and how that would be reflective of other team comps that would run even just thematically. But even if you're going for thematically, they literally are running the same exact team comp to this point, and they end up running the exact same team comp. So I think a very fatal flaw from Fnatic, maybe trying to think to ride on that momentum of day one, but I think you need to be able to diversify your strategy. There's no reason why you should pick this team comp in the same exact way, because when you were looking at the team that they faced on day one, their team comp was very good at countering, blue build Ezreal and things that Origin were making in their lineup, but now you're going to have such tools that are able to deal with the team comp and engage that Fnatic is bringing, so I don't think it's smart to pick up these picks. That's a little rant that I can get more into when we analyze the team as a whole, but picking up Zac by itself, a very strong jungler pick, not much I would suggest here. Besides that, he does a decent amount of damage, and I think that the Lucian can really bring up the damage mantle as well as a LeBlanc, so I really wouldn't suggest anything else. Maybe an Elise would have been just a bit more damage, but I think Zac is probably the superior choice in the sense that that slingshot range gives you so much more gank paths, especially with the less vision due to the preseason changes. I think Zac is also very tanky, giving them more of a front line they need, also allowing them to go maybe a little squishier in the top lane if they want, and also I think it is really good at dealing dealing with people like Rise, being able to gank that Rise early in the if it goes mid lane or top lane, regardless, because of the range of the slingshot, being able to get those ganks off and set that Rise behind, I think it's very effective. And now let's get into Olaf. Now, my buddy Olaf, my buddy Gamsu, like, you need to be able to play more champions, and I'm not saying that in the sense that Gamsu can't play more champions. I'm pretty sure he's like, well, if I crushed on Olaf day one, pretty good chance I'll crush on Olaf day two. And he crushed Soaz, a pretty prolific top laner in the European LCS and the whole West, in fact. But I mean, this Olaf really doesn't give you much. It's really good in the sense that it was very good at countering the exact mechanics and things that were on Origin's team, which made it a good pick in that sense, but there's no longer that here. What's Olaf going to do besides try to jump onto this Rise, being able to ult through his rune prisons, out through any CC from Morgana? But I mean, blind picking the Olaf, really? I think the best pick that would have been going here would have been the Fiora. The Fiora would have been the best pick for Gamsu to pick up. It would have had a lot more scaling into the late game. It would have been able to do a lot more damage and gives you a big split push threat. Not that Olaf doesn't have also split push potential, but I think it just overall would have been better, and you really don't need the tankiness of Olaf when you have that Zac already that can serve as a huge front line, as well as the front line potential that Poppy gets as the game goes later and later. And I think Fiora just has better scaling, better damage overall, especially with the pure damage of the passive, and the fact that Fiora has been left open this entire time, I think would have been a much better choice. Now, kind of go into the strengths of Olaf and maybe why they would have changed it. They're probably riding off the momentum of day one, and if Gamsu showed such skill and proficiency on Olaf, it's probably good just to ease Gamsu into the LCS while people thought he wouldn't be as good, to just kind of do comfort picks for him. Well, it's not necessarily bad, it just ends up being really bad to how this team comp turns out for Vitality. So let's get into finishing the Vitality team comp. They pick up Fiora, which, no surprise, probably the best top laner that's left available on the board, since Gangplank is eliminated and so is Lissandra, while leaving Fiora up. So I'm very surprised. This is probably where the Thresh ban could have been a Fiora ban and made Fnatic's game a lot easier for them. But Fiora, as I've already said, a lot of late game scaling potential, a lot of damage. She can get the AoE factor if she picks up the Hydra, but regardless, the pure damage and the dueling capacity of her is going to be able to duel out the Olaf, be able to dodge a lot of the damage. It doesn't matter because there's no stuns coming up from Fiora, so his ult is pretty much useless in the fact that Fiora can just out damage him, kite around him, and eliminate him, and offers a lot more split push potential, especially against this team of Fnatic that really doesn't have a lot of wave clear besides the Lucian at this point. So I think it's a very good pickup for the Fiora, very smart on Vitality's end. And then the Elise pickup is probably, again, a very good pickup. And not only does Elise offer the frontline factors of getting tanky, going Cinderhulk and stuff like that, she has a lot of early game damage with her Q and other various executes that she can initiate in combination with Thunderlords, makes it insane. And it offers a lot of gank ability, just as Zac does with the range of the Cocoon and the Repel and Delane, that in such combos that they can execute on an Elise. So I think Shook excuse me, sorry. I think Shook picking up the Kasing